Okay, we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we worked out the audio issues. Hopefully everybody can hear me. So we'll go ahead and get started. And on behalf of the Council on Library and Information Resources and the Digital Library Federation, welcome today's eResearch Peer Network and Mentoring Group, our first webinar. Today we'll focus on research data services in libraries. My name is Rita Van Dynen, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. I just wanted to point out the chat window on the left of the screen. You can feel free to type in questions anytime. We'll be pausing throughout the session today for a question and answer session. Louisa has given each of you microphone rights so that when your institution's slides come up, you'll be able to review them for the rest of the group. If for some reason your audio isn't working, I'm happy to read the slides for you, and you can also use the chat window to communicate. So we will conclude today's webinar at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And again, if at any time you have technical difficulties, you can either send Louisa an email, and she'll post her email address again, or send us a private chat. And if you want to use the private chat feature, just mouse over our names and click on the private chat option. You can also exit and re-enter the webinar at any time if you're having difficulties. Adobe Connect is a great tool for webinar delivery. However, it is not always great for audio. So we have had audio issues in the past. So just be patient, and hopefully everything will run smoothly and we'll know what to do differently next time. Okay, so today we have our eScience Institute faculty member Chuck Humphrey. Chuck is the coordinator for Research Data Management Services at the University of Alberta Libraries. Over his career, he's worked on several regional, national, and international initiatives to increase access to data for teaching and research. This includes serving on Canadian data initiatives such as the National Data Archive Consultation, the National Consultation on Access to Scientific Research Data, the Data Liberation Initiative, and the Canadian Digital Information Strategy. Also with us today, we have two CLEAR DLF postdoctoral fellows in data curation for the sciences and social sciences, and they are Vesela Ensberg from UCLA and Natsuko Nichols from the University of Michigan. Vesela is a postdoctoral fellow at UCLA, as I mentioned. She earned her PhD in cellular and molecular biology from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. In her fellowship, she is working with faculty, graduate students, researchers, and library staff to implement the library's eScience strategy. She is part of a collaborative effort to develop the library's data services by serving as a representative of and a liaison to the scientific community. Natsuko Nichols is currently a fellow at the University of Michigan, where she also earned her PhD in political science. During her fellowship, she is conducting research and assessment related to data curation services offered to researchers in the social sciences across the University of Michigan campus. So welcome postdoctoral fellows Vesela and Natsuko and Chuck Humphrey. Okay, today's webinar is going to consist of the following. We'll have updates from all of you that sent in slides. You'll be able to review those for the rest of the group. If you didn't send your slides in time for the webinar, that's fine. You can always upload them later into the CLEAR Connect space. I did have to make some changes to the slide so that the text was enlarged. So if you initially had 2 slides, you might have 3 now, but I'll advance the slides as you go on. And for your updates, have one member of your team review your slide for the rest of the group. And at the end of the updates, we'll have some time for question and answers across the group. Following that, Natsuko and Vesela will be discussing building a roadmap for research data services. And if time allows, we'll have further discussion. Finally, we'll close with details on the next webinar and on ways to keep you engaged as a group in between webinars. And we'll be talking more about that later. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Colgate University. So Colgate, when you're ready, you can go ahead and take it away. We can.
Okay, good. I very rarely use the mic here, so I'm not that sure about whether it works or not. Anyhow, I think everyone can see my slides on the board or up on the screen. There's not really much to say beyond what they have there. We're very much in a state of either evolution if you're a glass half full person, or disarray if you're a glass half empty. A lot of problem we have is we can do things, but we don't know if we have the human resources to do them on a regular basis. For example, yesterday I had some students who are having trouble with STATA, and I helped them, but on the other hand, I'm told not to help them because if we help everybody who has trouble with STATA, then we won't be able to do anything. So it's we really need to make some hard decisions. My ideal model was this Bernard College Empirical Reasoning Lab. As I said here, we've got some really neat resources for multimedia, digital media here at Colgate, and I'd love to see us have something similar on the data discovery, analysis, and management side. With a little luck, we may have that as we've got a pilot melon grant for technology and teaching, and we'll be applying for a larger grant in about a year. I think there was a second slide that I sent in. Yes. How can the e-research network help? A lot of it, well, there are two dimensions. One is to sort of use the resources here to make a case to those who live above us, literally in Colgate, because we're on a hill, so the administration is on the hill above us, to provide the support we need. And then where I'm actually in the process of writing the research data services policy, and so I'll probably use this group as a sounding board with that. So I think that's my points. Thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, next up we have Montana State University. Whenever you're ready, Montana.
Yeah, so I am the data management librarian here, and I was just hired. I just came on about a month ago, so we don't have anything official yet, but we do have this research computing group of whom Paul was at. He's participating in the webinar, and he's part of that group. So they've been doing some data management planning, and they also do analysis and data storage. As well as outreach, and they have some repository stuff they've been working on. Our vision, do you want to add to that, Paul?
I guess all I can add to that is just to say that we're really just now getting all of our responsibilities sorted out as far as what kind of services and things are going to be offered by the centralized research computing group, and then what kind of things are going to live in the library. So this is an ongoing conversation. It's likely that my group will end up contributing infrastructure for computation, storage, and so on, and working directly with the researchers. And the library's role will be more of a preservation, archiving, outreach, and that kind of thing. But there's going to be a lot of overlap, I think. So sorting out what those roles are going to be and how they're going to go and how everything's going to fit together is sort of our immediate plan and where we are in our sort of roadmap. But yeah, Sarah, what about the ideal vision?
I think, yeah, we want to help researchers do good data management. We want to teach them and train them. We want to provide consultation for data management plans and for good data management practice. And then, yeah, the preservation is a big part of it, as well as encouraging data reuse and open access and sharing. So you can go to the next slide, yeah. Yeah, this is self-explanatory, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is Jason Clark speaking. The real, you can see we're in beginning stages, but the roles have started to really settle, I think, and one of the newer components of our library work will be bit preservation and archiving, because the analysis role has been largely taken care of, and the expertise is within Paul's group. So this is a nice opportunity to find where the library can pick up a service and also collaborate with entities outside of the building.
Yeah, and similarly to Colgate, we are looking to build a roadmap. So we're hoping that this group will help us with that, kind of figure out where to start and where to go from there.
Yeah, and also, this is Paul again. We're in very new territory. I think that we're not alone in that. But if others have had success in certain strategies or in how they've divided up work or services even, or even found that there have been some spectacular failures in some kinds of services, all that would be really useful information at this stage for us. And so we're really hoping to get some collaborative information from colleagues throughout, you know, and help us in this process.
Thank you so much.
And we,
Okay, that's okay. Were you finished? Do you want me to go back? Okay, up next is Northwestern. And when you're ready, the mic is yours.
Hi there. Hello, this is Pamela. And we currently don't actually have a formalized research data services model at Northwestern. However, my colleague, who's also on this call, although she doesn't have a mic, Kanarabize, has created a guide to data management resources and data management plans. We also provide the data management plan tool and consultation on those plans. In terms of sharing, we have a Vault collaborative sharing platform, and we're implementing Box.net. And the university itself has an institutional research data policy that we provided a link for. One of the things we've done within the last couple of years is we created the eSciences Working Group, which is a collection of representatives from the libraries, the Office for Research, and Information Technology and Research Computing Services. That's helped us look at data management from many different sides, which has been really useful, I think, at least to me. And the eSciences Working Group, we just completed a survey this past winter of the research community, faculty, staff, postdocs, and even graduate students, to gather information on their knowledge or their lack of knowledge on data management so that we can formulate a more comprehensive and maybe formal model of research data services. So you can go on to the next slide. Based on that survey, we have an idea that an ideal RDS model would kind of encompass a little bit of everything from all parts of the data life cycle. We'd like to, at least from the eSciences Working Group, act as one body for broad-based support, but we would know the links to the experts in each school or division that could help users with data management. So we would provide an umbrella of services, everything from education to consultation to options and assistance with data management plans. What we've discovered we need is we have to make sure that we have understanding and support from the highest levels of the university, administration at all schools, business school, medical school, College of Arts and Sciences, etc., and the research offices. We're getting closer, but we've discovered that everything will be much easier overall if we had high levels of support from administration. We've also discussed that subject level expertise, especially in the libraries, is less important than the librarians and other people in research data management having skills in identifying where gaps exist in data management knowledge, and also the skills to act as connectors to the correct experts across the institution for each part of the data lifecycle so that we can point people in the right direction for assistance. Also skills in organizing, community building, finding the culture changers in the institution. That's kind of part of the connectors. And then it looks like our last point got put on the third slide. Sorry about that. what we need from the eResearch and Peer Network and Mentoring Group is kind of what the other people have said, and that is maybe help us formulate a good conversation for implementation. How did you get this working at your institution if you feel like it's up and working? Successes and failures, I will agree with others, are always good to be shared. It's been interesting reading some of the papers for today that indicate some of the things that we've run into after surveying our users, and that is getting everybody on board for understanding that this is important. And we've also discussed that individual technology solutions of a specific data platform, say for archiving, is not as useful to us than examples of how we can approach this kind of from an overall basis. And that's about it. And Kinera, if you want to add anything,
thank you so much.
Feel free to type it in, Kinera, if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, by all means, go ahead. Great. All right, next up is the University of Arizona. Whenever you're ready, Arizona, the microphone is yours.
This is Chris Collin from the University of Arizona. My colleague Jim Martin is also here. So the services that we're providing right now, we have a website that's up and available. We're available for consultation. We're available to do workshops. We've been working on an online tutorial, and then of course access to the data management plan tool. And listed under outreach, you can see a number of the ways that we've outreached to campus. I'd like to mention a couple of other things. I'm the chair of we have a campus data management subcommittee that's part of the Research Computing Governance Committee. And so we've been able to get a fair amount of support at the university's administrative level. That's been really helpful. Although, I still feel like we're still sort of just beginning, and we're still working on promoting services, and so our response to the services that we're providing, I feel, is pretty limited. And I think at Northwestern, that Pamela mentioned that they had done a survey of faculty and grad students about research data management to find out what faculty and grad students need. We actually have a survey that's out there right now and closes in, I think, in a couple of weeks. So we're really hoping that will give us some information about what services the library should be providing. And then, so I've got under the library roles for an ideal RDS model. Let's see, some of these are the same as what we're currently providing. And in addition, helping faculty and grad students manage the life cycle of research data. And you can see on the screen the number of different ways we would be able to do that. Assist with metadata. I attended the Data Information Literacy Symposium last fall, and I'd really like to work more with graduate students and offer data literacy workshops, either as part of classes or as part of in the research labs. Since on the data management committee and also the larger committee, the library needs to help develop requirements and functionality for possibly a campus data repository. And let's see what else. And then I guess going down to skills needed, And this was a little bit more difficult to come up with. We probably need help developing skills on ingesting data into appropriate repositories. And also, one thing that's coming up, and I don't know, what specific type of skill this would be, but there's a number of indexes to disciplinary repositories, and depending on somebody's discipline, there can be like a lot of them. And is there like an easier way to evaluate which ones would be best for a particular researcher without like going into a lot of detail with into each repository? The types of support we feel that we'd need would be, and other people have mentioned this, examples of what services other libraries have developed, what kind of staffing they needed, how they promoted those services, and then from the faculty and fellows, we'd like more real-life examples of what are some of the issues, data management issues that faculty are facing, and then examples of data management policies developed by other universities. Jim, did you want to add anything? So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Up next, we have the University of Manitoba Libraries. The microphone is all yours. Mayu is from the University of Manitoba Libraries, and she is having some audio difficulties. So you can see the slides that they've sent in, and she says she will add comments. So their current research data services model, they don't currently have a model. They are at the beginning of planning and implementing research data services. Their vision and plans for research data services include the libraries leading in data management for the university, liaison librarians being a crucial part in data management services, offering data management education to faculty and graduate students, and developing an infrastructure for digital preservation and a data repository. Mayu, I'm going to go ahead and advance to the next slide unless you want to add something in the chat window. Great. Okay, and Manitoba says that with regards to how this group can help, they'd like advice on how to adapt publicly available resources to the local setting and to different academic disciplines. They're interested in looking at the curriculum developed at the New England Collaborative Data Management Curriculum, or maybe you're already using it or trying to implement some portion of that curriculum. And they also would like to gain internal and external support for building a data repository at the libraries and university level or as part of a consortium. And I will pause there and see if Mayu has anything else to add. I see she's typing, as is Chris Collin from the University of Arizona. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Great. Thank you so much. Again, our apologies for the audio. Hopefully next time we'll get it working. Okay, up next is the University of Rochester. Rochester, the microphone is yours.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear us. So our model for research data services is kind of related to our overall service model, of which we're implementing sort of a new service model, basically, which kind of emphasizes embedded librarianship and outreach and that sort of thing. Of course, it's much bigger than just data, but it's important because it influences what our vision for data services looks like. So in terms of the research data services model, we see it as a very sort of collaborative effort between the subject librarian and the data librarian, and I'm the data librarian. We see the subject librarians providing sort of a basic level of data services, and when I say basic, that's really anything from just referrals to helping with data management plans to helping with subject archives, you know, sort of depending on their level of interest and expertise. And then I do sort of higher level support, getting involved with research projects, along with doing outreach and strategic direction for the program, including kind of being a liaison to other campus entities that are involved in data, like our Research Computing Center, the University IT, and that kind of thing. So the services that we're currently offering, we've done quite a bit with guidance for data management planning, including implementing the DMP tool, offering review services and workshops and that kind of thing, and those have had a pretty good response. We've also been doing outreach and education on data management practices generally, including, you know, documenting data and that sort of thing. And we're also looking at ways to support people in doing data archiving. And we've got a couple different ways that we're doing that. One is we do have an institutional repository that people can put data into. We recently purchased some vouchers to the Dryad repository to help researchers offset the cost of archiving in that particular repository. We also offer assistance in finding and using subject repositories. So our goals with respect to this program are to expand, develop, and refine our eScience agenda. It's been a really useful tool so far, and we're looking to, you know, build on it and continue to move on. One thing that we're especially looking at doing is kind of improving our outreach strategy, figuring out how to reach the right people at the right time to get them the services that they need. And we're excited for this group to kind of meet all you guys and share our stories and hear from you what your successes and things have been. We expect that you folks will help us learn about, in particular, how busy librarians can be involved with data services, you know, to the extent that data services are like an additional thing that people are taking on. How do you find balance with all the stuff that's already going on and adding this new like suite of things to it? We'd like to enrich our relationships with faculty, students, and staff. Really, you know, build relationships so that when people think about their data, they think about the library. And then we're also particularly interested in thinking about how we can support visualization, teaching, and research. We're going to be the site of a visualization collaboratory that will open this summer, and we're kind of trying to find our place with respect to that. So if you have any ideas, we would love to hear them. I think that's all we have.
Thank you so much. Okay, University of Toronto, the floor is yours. Okay, Toronto, sorry about the audio issues. Again, it could be either on your end or an issue with Adobe, so I will read your slides for you. The University of Toronto currently has some elements of research data services and provides data support, but they're moving to broaden and deepen their level of service across the entire research data lifecycle. And I'll give the Toronto folks a few minutes to add anything to that if they'd like. And Sean says he wants to say that while they're lucky to have administrative support, they need to work out how to do it at scale. It's a big institution, indeed. Okay, let me know when you're ready to go to the next slide. Okay. The question on thinking about their vision of an ideal RDS model. Their goals would be to build services and infrastructure based on researcher needs that are well integrated with other relevant services on campus and beyond, and to ensure that the university's research data are curated, discovered, and reused. Library roles would include tools, support, and infrastructure for data curation and discovery, needs assessment and consultation services for RDS, and to collaborate with other partners on and off campus. Skill sets would include metadata expertise for data privacy, licensing, and IP issues, technology skills specific to data curation and preservation, and capacity building in existing and new staff. And is there anything you want to add before I advance to the next slide? Okay, and Toronto says that the e-research and peer network and mentoring group can help them by building our network, contacts at other institutions, providing exposure to best practices, things that have worked, things that don't, benchmarking, and a deeper learning about existing initiatives. And again, Toronto, if there's anything you want to add in the chat, go right ahead. We're at the end of your slide presentation, so we'll pause here for a few minutes of question and answer if you all want to ask questions of each other. And we'll take about 5 minutes to do that before we move on to the next section of the webinar. So you can either use the microphone or use the chat window. So Pamela from Northwestern wants to know if anyone's implemented the curriculum that's been created by the Northeastern Consortium. Kathleen from Rochester is typing. folks are chatting, I'm just going to tell you, I'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll move on to the next section of the webinar. And I will be exporting the text from the chat session and making that available through the Clear Connect space. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section of the webinar, which is building a roadmap for research data services. Feel free to keep chatting in the window. If time allows, we'll have some more time for discussion at the end. But in the interest of time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our postdoctoral fellows who will be delivering this part of the content. So whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon. This is Vesela, the Clear Fellow at UCLA. It's a pleasure to virtually meet everybody. All of us here at the peer network have a common goal of developing research data services, and everybody is bringing different experience to the table. This particular presentation, I hope you'll find both encouraging and helpful in thinking about your next step on the RDS roadmap. So the Clear DLF postdoctoral fellows in data curation have first-hand experiences with projects that produce data. As a result, we had to face directly problems and find approaches to data management during our graduate studies. Now, during our fellowship in research libraries, we're contributing to essentially what I think of as research and development of services for institutional involvement in data management. There are a lot of expertise in the library that can be adjusted to be applied to data management. And so Natsuko and I have incorporated some of our experiences into this short presentation. And Natsuko will take it from here to discuss why we think about building research data services as a roadmap.
Okay, next slide, please. So why do we need to build a roadmap? A roadmap will serve as a guide or a plan to proceed from one stage to another, leading us to a destination. Some refer to a stage as a phase, but here we consistently use the term milestone. Our long answer to the questions of why a roadmap is that a roadmap will be a living document which will address issues around research data and make recommendations for data support and services, as well as infrastructure, committing significant capital investment. In this regard, building a roadmap itself is an ongoing process during which research data services will likely evolve from subject-based or needs-based services at the project level to more systematic program-based services at the institutional level, or vice versa. The purpose of this first webinar is to help participating institutions understand the key aims and issues associated with planning and implementing research data services. We will help you build your own RDS roadmap. Some of you already built one or two. And based on a broad sampling of trends in these services at institutions across the U.S. and internationally. Samples include work and experiences from the libraries where CLEAR Fellows are being hosted and are instrumental in helping the libraries move forward with data-related initiative, just as Vesela mentioned. As shown in one of the required readings, as you know, we gave some of the list of the readings, and one of the required reading included our teamwork at the University of Michigan. In this study, CLEAR Fellows at the University of Michigan, including myself, constructed institutional timelines depicting key milestones. These milestones are the launch of service, supporting the acquisition and analysis of data. So we measured by a first hire of data librarian, a full-time data librarian. The planning we measured as conducting some kind of assessment, and the implementation of services specifically designed to support the management of data around the research lifecycle, including data preservation and dissemination, which was measured by the first launch of institutional repository and whether they have already launched data repository. Some would, of course, argue that a roadmap and milestones for institution will differ, and we say that is correct. So let's start with discussing milestones in theory first. Okay. As you know, data support and services are increasingly being recognized as a crucial component of library services. You're all from libraries. Indeed, many academic libraries are quickly developing support for research data management and curation, including both new services and infrastructure. Through today's webinar, we'd like to get you started with a suggested roadmap and milestones. Although we discuss critical milestones in both theory and practice, it should be noted that the focus of today's webinar is only one component of a much larger, more or less formalized process at most research institutions to develop and maintain a research data management infrastructure. Additional critical topics will be covered over the course of this program based on where you currently stand and what your future needs will be. Based on existing literature and a broad sampling of trends among peers, we propose 5 components as shown on this slide. Reviewing, environmental scanning, and surveying, which includes data needs assessment with a campus survey and interviewing, identifying such needs and the gap between what libraries currently offer and what research need for data sharing. So here I can give you some example from the University of Michigan. We did have some environmental scanning to identify who's involved in providing a current research data services, and turn back. I was just talking about the example from the University of Michigan, and when we did environmental scanning, we realized that we've been very successful in providing data services in terms of visualization and the geospatial data services. But we, of course, noticed that there was no services giving a guidance in data management planning. A third component, I apologize for that. A third component is tool and infrastructure. Oh, I'm sorry. The second component is education, training, and outreach. This includes raising awareness of funders' data management requirements and to provide resources and guidance to researchers in writing a data management plan, as well as implementing such a plan. The third component, a tool and infrastructure development, to include tool selection and adoptions, for example, data repository platform, whether to build data repository on Hydra or DSpace, or the introductions of a tool for data management, for example, DMP tool, and DMP tool is coming out in May. So some of the participating institutions already mentioned the DMP tool. So that's one of the things about the third component. The fourth component, policy formation. This may require more institutional level engagement and a holistic approach to development. For example, open access policy adopted by the university systems at the University of California. Last component is data services evaluation. One example is from the Michigan is that we have conducted engineering data support pilot designed for engineering faculty, helping write a data management plan, and after which we propose evaluation as a next step to measure our success, and then use pilot results to guide the development of other new services, particularly consultation services infrastructure to extend the library's support for the creation, analysis, storage, preservation, and sharing of research data in sciences, social sciences, and humanities. Before asking what milestones in practice look like, we would like to summarize major purposes of building a roadmap very quickly. So we aim to match goals with actions and solutions, to reach a consensus and coordinate developments, to address the needs of various campus constituents, and then finally, we aim to incorporate best practices along the way. Next, we'd like to show a roadmap in practice. Again, there is no single roadmap that is correct or wrong, but we certainly have seen some pattern from a broad sampling of research data services trend. In 2013, a survey of Association of Research Libraries, ARL, members found that 100% of responding libraries offer at least one type of data support service, and many have taken a similar initial step while planning to expand their range of data services. And it has become apparent that all the institutions who presented today have very similar initial steps as well. And more recently, we have conducted a short survey asking eScience Institute alumni what steps they took during and after the ESI program. As part of promoting this new peer network and mentoring program, we wanted to know where libraries stand today. Interestingly, almost all alumni who responded to our survey noted that they began with environmental scanning and assessment as part of planning. About 75% of alumni have moved forward to the stage of data education and outreach. Based on the survey results, we selected 2 or 3 particular components as initial milestones, which is today's topic. And by the way, you also have access to this initial survey that we conducted most recently through Clear Connect. So what are the goals of environmental scanning and surveying the current state of data landscape? Well, it helps us identify available resources, identify stakeholders and designated communities. When we do this, we often look at the disciplinary differences, humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, but at the same time, when we look at the designated communities, we also need to look into who are the practitioners, librarians, subject specialists, liaisons, and one of the participants presented the importance of subject specialists, and I totally agree with that. And when we talk about other practitioners, meaning archivists, preservation librarians, data archivists. So these are more particularly designated communities that we need to keep in mind. Third goal is that when we do environmental scans, we notice that, and we already noticed from very limited pool of participants today, that almost everybody did some environmental scan. But when we do this, we do so because we do not want to really reinvent a wheel. So we want to know and we want to learn successes and also failures. And it is true that we often hear more success stories, but we don't hear much about failure and what things didn't work. So this is what we aim to open up our stories here. Finally, we try to build relationship within the library and across campus units. And some presenters already mentioned that having the administrative on board or even across campus outside the university library, mostly about the OVPR, Office for Research Vice President, which often is the key players. At the case of University of Michigan, we did outreach as part of the environmental scan and the surveying. We noticed that we need to outreach to librarians first and then outside. So we did have some workshops, and following that, we are planning to have more like particular subject-based workshops designed for faculty and graduate students, and that will be presented more with particular examples from UCLA. And now I turn to Visila.
Thank you, Natsuko. And at this point, I just want to invite a little bit of discussion and ask a single question of every participating institution. What was your, or who is your most important and helpful partner, and how did you build that relationship? So maybe I'll just go down the list the way it appears in Adobe Connect, or actually if everybody could just type this into the chat window. Who is your best partner, and how did you go about establishing that successful relationship? And I'm going to ask everybody to take a minute and type their answer right now, and then I'm going to proceed. All right, so there are multiple answers showing up, and the answers in the chat are going to be made available for everybody. So hopefully there will be some useful tips for all the participants. I'm going to move on to education and outreach, which is really the part that I have been involved in. And before I start, I have not implemented the New England Collaborative Data Management Curriculum, but